Morning, everybody. I'm late. Why am I late? Because I was actually preparing a different stream. So, whee! Hey, gravity, it still works. Good check. The stream that I was working on was answering a bunch of drumming questions, like I've done previously. Like if we go back here, answering even more questions. So I was gonna do one of those, and I was like, I need to spend like another half an hour just like thinking through what I want to say. So stay tuned for that. That'll come in probably about 2 to 4 days. We'll see. But anyways, all these practice streams that I do, I share my experiences as somebody who's been drumming since 1998, who has a bachelor's, master's, PhD in music education. So I'll talk about teaching, I'll talk about drumming, I'll talk about how I practice, and I'll demonstrate it in all these practice streams. And sometimes people will come in and ask questions, or I'll see questions on like the interwebs, and I will turn them into a response that I do during a live stream. I'll edit it down and put it into this drumming tips playlist that has dozens of hours of free drumming tips. All these ones at the very top that say members first are scheduled to release. There's a new one every single Friday, so stay tuned for that. And if you're on YouTube, you can find this just on the home tab. So you just go boop, and you'll find it here underneath the drumming content. There's over 1,000 free play-alongs, and 416, I think, currently scheduled to release. Good morning, everybody. How we doing? But if you're on vertical, the link that's right here, /drum, takes you to this page. It has 55 chop exercises, over 900 grid variations, 55 drum charts, a bunch of timing stuff that are currently releasing right now, just under 400 marching bass stuff, just under 300 technique stuff, and then the different playlists for related to tips and lessons, etc. Now today I'm going to be working on the exercise called Suzie, which has lyrics that I'm not going to repeat because, you know, family friendly and all that. We're going to start at 40, and we're going to see how fast we can get, just going one click at a time. For every single one of these play-alongs, there are timestamps, and you just go into the description, and you click, and then if it's a 0 or a 5, it gives you like a few seconds to get yourself set up, and then it'll count you off, and you play along to it, etc. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start off from 40 to 45, and then I'm going to stretch and massage, and then we'll go faster. Well, 40 to 44, technically, but you know. Question, what name song, Maroon 5 or Nickelback? I don't know. I couldn't name a single one. No, wait. Photograph, right? Isn't that Nickelback, I think? My wife would know. I'm not a music trivia kind of person. Sorry. I failed you. Unsub. I know. I get it. I dropped my stick at the beginning. I don't know song names. Yep. I get it. Look at this graph. That meme makes my wife and I laugh pretty hard. Here we go. Man, those gray sounds are so open on the play along. Yeah, I don't like how open the grace note sounds on this play along. It's weird. Normally, it doesn't sound like good up. So I want to make sure that when I'm doing this, I am staying nice and relaxed as we slowly speed this up. I don't want to have heavy accents. It's okay to pull them back, but you don't need like do that, or it's gonna be rough when we speed this up. I might need to adjust this play along. It just sounds weird. I don't know what that means. Tour stadium? I don't know that word. What does it mean? Sweet. 2 more reps, then we'll stretch and massage, and then we'll resume the grind. The problem with having thousands of free play-alongs is like, what do I want to play today? I settled on Suzie. I haven't played this one in a while. Good question, Bread. I think I'm reading that correctly. Yeah, I'll show you after this rep. All right, we'll stretch and massage here in a moment, but first I'm going to answer your question, Bread. So since you're on YouTube, any of these play-alongs, you could go to the first link at the top of the description, and that takes you to the website where things are neatly organized. But if you want to stay on YouTube, that's totally fine. You just click on my name, and this takes you to my home tab. On the home tab, we have drumming, gaming, computer science stuff. I share stuff that I nerd out on, so if you only want the drumming stuff, just click on the header for drumming content, and it shows you literally thousands of free play-alongs and whatnot. Now, this very first chunk that's right here has like all the basics that you really need to work on. We've got all the tips, all the lessons, as well as like the live streams and whatnot. What I recommend for your working on chops is we have this playlist for chop exercises. This has a ton of exercises like the ones that you mentioned, like Suzie, cheesy poofs, flamus, shopping sprees, etc. There's 55 different exercises in here that can help you improve your chops. For every single one of these, it has the timestamps in the description and allows you to go as slow as you need to go. So if you can play Suzie at 60 and it sounds great, sweet. Click on the BPM to start at 70, and they'll go sometimes as fast as 200 beats a minute. What I generally recommend for anyone who's drumming is to spend the majority of your time focusing on the technique exercises, and then spend the next chunk of your time working on grid variations, whether it's triplet grid or 16th note grid, and then spend a little bit of your time working on the chop stuff. So here's what that actually looks like if we go to the first link that's at the top of each one of the descriptions. This just makes it easier to visualize it. But again, you don't have to go on my website. It's just neatly organized here. So what I generally recommend is like 50 to 60% of your time-ish should be focused on technique exercises. Slow things down. I've been playing since 1998, and like have the majority of the practice streams are working on stuff slow, like I'm starting right now. So I've been playing a very long time, and I continue to refine my technique. You can never work on technique enough. So 50 to 60% of your time should be working on technique, specifically slow. There's a ton of exercises in here, and they're organized into these different playlists. Like if you want to work on your endurance and speed, click on this playlist, and then boom, there's 47 different exercises in here that specifically focus on it. And again, all the ones that say members first are scheduled to release publicly, a new one daily, so you don't need to sign up for membership. I don't want anything behind a paywall. I just have over 400 of them scheduled, so people get early access if they want it. So 50 to 60% of your time work on technique exercises. 30 to 40-ish% of your time focus on grid variations. You can do 16th note grid or triplet grid for different rudiments. So we have a bunch of the common rudiments in here for hybrid rudimental drumming rudiments, like cheeses, drags, fives, etc. If you just focus on like rudiment on one for these variations, this will set you apart from so many different people. But if you actually take a look at these exercises, like if you're working on flam fives with flam 5 on 1 or backwards grid flam 5 on 1, and you go through that, this is really just working on technique still. So what I'm actually recommending is spending a huge portion of your practice time working on your technique, and only the remaining 10 to 20%-ish working on chop exercises. Your chops will improve as your technique improves, but you can't just, most people can't just sit there and like work on technique all day, every single day. You got to have that like candy with the vegetables, basically, if I use like a crude analogy for you. So spending 10, maybe 20% of your time working on chop stuff for funsies, like learning how to play these like different shopping sprees, like Blue Devils 2000 or RCC's Maury spree or Velvet Knights 5/4 spree, etc. That's fun to do, and I recommend it. But if you spend the majority of your time, like 80% of your time working on chop stuff, you'll never actually make significant gains as if you would go within the ratios that I recommend. So to very quickly summarize, for the practice routine that I recommend doing is 50 to 60% of your time spending on technique exercises, the stuff that's in here. 30 to 40% of your time work on grid variations, whether it's triplet or 16th note. It's up to you. Do both. And then the remaining 10 to 20% of your time work on chop stuff. And that's how you can improve your chops over time. And because there are thousands of exercises in here, it should keep you busy for a long time. Like if you get bored playing like flam drag on one grid, sweet. Well, there are 27 exercises in here that are triplet based. And if we go to the 16th note based one, we got flam drags. There are 30 of them that are in here. The very top one is always like here's how to play this thing, which is why it's like the number of videos -1. Anyways, hopefully that answers your question, Brad. Great question. But again, you can find all this stuff on YouTube, but it's organized neater here on my website. But anyways, let's stretch and massage, which is also a thing that I highly recommend doing every single time you're practicing. Let's go with this overhead view. You're very welcome. Use the timestamps in the description. Focus on going slow. Stay relaxed. Focus on your technique. Pull your sticks in, pull your sticks in. You push it out. Ooh, this gives you a really good forearm stretch along the side of your forearms. And Brad, feel free to stop by in future streams. I do answer a ton of questions. I'll turn those into the drumming tips videos that you see on the home tab as well. But happy to answer some questions and help people out. I still have a lot of stuff to work on, but I have been drumming and teaching for a very long time. So I've learned some things over the years. If you do traditional rotate and hold here, then rotate and hold there, 20 to 30 seconds. I don't do traditional anymore, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stretch the underside of the forearm. So we're under here. You could do it like this one at a time. So you're just kind of like pulling your fingers back. You could do it right here like this, or you could do it on the wall. The lower you go, the deeper your stretch, but don't put all your weight into it. You don't want to tear your tendons. That's bad. I've got a scripted drumming lesson that's going to be coming out that talks about this stretch routine that I recommend and whatnot. So stay tuned for that. The holdup right now is actually the camera that I'm using. The GoPros look terrible. Like, it's weird how bad they look. We're going to stretch like this. You can stretch like this. You can stretch on the wall. The higher you go, the deeper the stretch. But again, don't put all your weight into it. Don't tear stuff. Now we're going to stretch finger to finger. Let's see, Nathan, I have a question. Double stroke rolls, first partial, and accents are fine. Ah, you struggle with the second partial. Any tips for that? Yas. Yas. I have quite a few different things that you can work on to improve the second note of your double stroke. Be prepared for it's like taking. I had a band director say that asking me a question is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant. I will give you more than you're gonna want for the answer. Having taught since 2003, I have a bajillion exercises that I've either played or like come up with that will address different questions and whatnot. But yeah, the second note of a double stroke roll is something that most students and myself had issues with. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can work on that. So I'm happy to share some of that. Thank you for the like on TikTok. Appreciate you. We're not massaging after we have stretched. So you're trying to massage up and down the forearm. Just trying to get nice and relaxed. And then after we talk about the second note of rolls, let's play Suzie more. Speed her up. Now I'm going to massage the palm. So I'm doing the thumb massaging the palm, the fingers massaging the back of the hand. And then the last thing we'll do is massage from base to tip of each one of the fingers. And then we'll talk about rolls. And then we'll talk about, well, we'll play through Suzie. And yeah, I'll try and keep this answer as concise as possible. So Nathan, you can come back and like check out the stream because it's all the streams are always live. So you can like, wait, what was it that Jared said? What was the exercise? And then you can check it out there. Okay, so the easiest way to demonstrate this is to just like actually go to the website into the technique section. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right meow. So we go to the first link at the top of each one of these play-alongs. So scroll past all of this stuff. So the question is, for people who don't see that, if you're in a different chat, the question is like, basically, how do I get my rolls to not sound like this? Where it's like emphasizing the first note and the second note is really thin. It doesn't sound very good. So how do you get that second note to sound more even? So one way that you can do this is just like take a towel or like a hoodie or something that you're okay getting damage in practice. Working up your chops, just playing on a softer surface and playing like this. So I don't know how well you can hear it because I'm literally just playing on a hoodie, but being able to get that second note in there without making it sound like this requires a lot of effort, requires a lot of drum chops. If you want to make it easier for yourself, fold it so you have less layers and you can play like that. That's one very simple way that you can work on this. Another way that you can work on the second note is to just wrist it. Getting used to moving the wrist motion, if you use a primary or wrist technique, and practicing it that way. You can practice it like this as well. But there's also some exercises that are specifically designed for improving this. So one of them is underneath the double beat playlist. If you go to here, it's the first exercise, diddle strength. So this exercise I actually learned from Jeff Queen. So Jeff Queen, this is a variation of it, is a 4-time world champion snare drummer, and I got a couple of lessons with him, and so he kind of knows what he's talking about. Dude's okay, I guess. Sarcasm. So the exercise, you play normal height, and then you emphasize the first note. So the accent is only about 3 inches higher than the tap in this type of exercise. The last measure, the accent is on the second note, but again, it's only about 3 inches higher. Think of it like an emphasis. So you do it off the right hand, both hands, left hand, both hands. The both hands part makes it so that you can hear the double stops, because what you want to hear is a popping sound rather than a flam sound. So you don't want like, you don't want that. You want that pop instead of, you don't want that. So the reason why I wrote it out this way is so when you're practicing it, you can hear how do my hands sound together, because you don't want to have like a roll that's like, like emphasized on one hand. So practice it this way. this will help you to work on that second note. Another way that you can work on this, going back to what I was mentioning at the very beginning, is just play a roll where you are intentionally trying to accent the second note. So instead of a roll like this, you're emphasizing the second note and try and play it where you're doing that. You can even do rim shots if you want, but it'll annoy everyone in like a 5-mile radius around you, especially if you're playing on a drum. But those are a couple ways to work on it. There's also a 3-stroke version of this, and for these strength exercises, whether it's the diddle or the 3-stroke, the accent is only about 3 inches higher than the tap. Do not treat this as... It's not an accent tap exercise, not at all. So just to clarify that. Okay, so that's an exercise that is great for working on the second note. Another way to work on the second note of the diddle is to actually work on inverted diddles. So what is an inverted diddle? So if we go to the roll timing exercise, we have on the very first line, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, and then it repeats for the second half. Okay, that's normal. Now we have an inverted roll where it starts with a single right hand. So right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. So why would you want to work on this? So a normal diddle, when you're playing this, you're feeling the triplet pulse. So triplet, 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 right? Okay. When you invert it, you're going triplet, triplet, triplet. That's the second note of the diddle that you're actually feeling on the pulse, on the subdivision, if that makes sense. So when you're playing this, you're playing a normal roll, but then the second line, you're playing an inverted roll. So you end with a double right here. So right, right into the downbeat, or right, right into the downbeat. And at 4-2-1's this. So you do 4 counts, 2 counts, 1 count, and then the extension where you go from a roll into an inverted roll. So the point of this being, if you work on not just a normal diddle or a normal roll, but you work on an inverted diddle and inverted rolls, it puts the second note of the diddle on the partial, and it forces you to actually feel it more than what you can when you're playing it normally. So that is why, if you go into the technique section and you take a look at the triplet diddle or 16th note diddle variations, in every single one of these, we have normal, inverted, normal, inverted, normal, inverted. And it does this for all of these different variations in here. And again, all the members' first videos are scheduled to release. I promise. They're all coming out for free. There's just a lot of them. So it's the same thing for whether it's triplet or for 16th note. When you're playing these, there's always an inverted version of this. And it's so you can work on the second note of your diddle. So if we take a look at this, this exercise looks weird, but it sounds the same as a normal diddle on one. So like this very first measure right here. So that's just a normal interpretation of it. If you play it inverted, it sounds the exact same rhythm, except instead of going right, right, left, right, you're going right, left, left, right. Or when you do a roll, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Again, you're just taking instead of the subdivision being on the first note, you're just shifting it over to its on the second note. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's another way that you can work on your diddles. We have the diddle strength stuff. We have practicing on a softer surface. And then we also have any of the variations that have inverted diddles or inverted rolls. And you can find those under the triplet diddle, 16th note diddle, under roll timing, etc. Another way that in general you can work on your diddles is using either the 5-stroke timing or the diddle timing exercises, which I did a few days ago. Did a stream working on that. But these are just great for working on interpretation of the diddle. So it slurs it out, it plays it normal, and then it plays it rushed. And so this is like great for working on the spacing between each one of the notes. But to work specifically on the height of the second note, go with some of those exercises. It's a 2-part thing. You can't just focus on one without the other, because then you'll have a slurred out diddle on accident or a rushed diddle on accident because you're not focusing on the spacing. That makes sense, hopefully. Sweet. I'm great. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate it. Sometimes not so much. Like yesterday when I was playing drum kit, not so much. All right, so let's continue with Suzie. So we were at 44 where we stopped off. So let's click to 45, and then we will continue. There's also a bunch of like diddle exercises that you can do with grid. Those are also some fun ones, like just diddle on one, or 5-stroke on one, or diddle on accents, or diddle on taps, and like all of those are in the grid playlist, and you can check those out. But focus on those other ones that I explained. You're very welcome. Happy practicing. Give it time. Yeah, it's so weird hearing how open the grace notes are on this particular play along. I can't not think about the lyrics for this. Thank you for the sub on YouTube. Appreciate it. Such a slow tap off. Whoops. I forgot an accent. Oh no. We'll see how fast we get today. Probably at least 50. Wish me luck. Little rim shot there. Yeah. A little extra seasoning on that. Yes, a little spice. I have a sandworm pit in the backyard. That's how I got all my spice. Gotta sprinkle it into the drumming every now and then. All right, 50. This is faster than I've ever played before. The last 26 years have all been no faster than 49 beats a minute. When I said practice slow, I really meant it. What's great is, statistically, I know that somebody is gonna take me seriously and be like, wow, Jared's weird. It doesn't matter what I say. Somebody will just completely misinterpret or misunderstand whatever it is. Mines are weird. But the jokes that go over people's heads make me laugh even more than the ones that hit. Now, when you're doing this and you're practicing, it like starts off tedious when you start off at like 40 or whatever. Thank you for the like. But as you slowly let it speed it up, and then it's just like, oh, okay, this is more tolerable. Woo! Thank you for the like. It's interesting on TikTok, like one person can like your content like thousands of times, but on YouTube it's like, here's your one, enjoy. I guess you could like unlike it and then just re-like it again and just keep doing that over and over. Just, you know, kind of simulate the experience. Ew. I screwed up. I was distracted. I'm sorry. I failed you. It's the first mistake I've ever made. That's what happens when you play above 49. It's just too difficult. that like to do the dances during the tap-offs because I'm just a goofball at heart, despite my appearance. But imagine you're like in a lot and you see like a whole line, or like a whole snare line do that. I would laugh so hard. I think it's even funnier because of the juxtaposition of just how I look, like my facial expression or lack of, while doing something goofy. I broke there because I'm making micro adjustments with my technique, like specifically my left hand, because after years of marching snare, I play match grip now. And so my left hand does not match my right hand as much as I would like, but it caused me to screw up. Whoops. Thank you for the sub on YouTube. Just imagine a whole snare line doing this. Yeah, like the one I did at the start of the stream, doing tricks like gravity checks. Yeah. Thank you for the likes on TikTok. So when doing this, a good thing to do every now and then is just remind yourself to, all right, this whole rep, all I'm going to do is focus on the taps and listening to every single one of those rather than the accents. So what most people focus on. Listen to the taps. That's how you can clean things up. Yeah, tenor lines are awesome. Like, if I were to march again, I would march tenors, because I already had enough experience on the snare. But tenors are fun. But the snare, it was great, because I'm OCD. So, I like perfectionist stuff. But I'm not a fan of traditional grip anymore, so I would definitely march tenors. Yas, crossovers and sweeps are so much fun to play. And you can do some of that on drum kit. If you want to get extra fancy. Little samba with crossovers. Just imagine playing like a samba with your feet while just like. Water break. A word from today's sponsor. Water. It tastes great. Use code Jared O'Leary in the water shop. With that paid sponsorship from water, we're going to make it rain. Sorry, I had to. I know. I get it. It's okay to unsubscribe. I understand. I'm on an acquired taste. Oh, you turned in the Hulk. Had a slurred out diddle there. I was thinking about something. My mind was not on my playing. Whoa. Focus. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes to share stuff like this, like clips of yourself playing it on social media to get feedback in particular, make sure you share at least 2 reps of it instead of just 1 so you can hear what's consistent and what's inconsistent. Very important. Good morning, Jeffrey. How you doing? Whoa! Dance break. My thumb just like completely came off the stick. We're relaxed. Glad to hear you're doing good. Yeah, Nathan, it is a fun rhythm. It's also lyrics. I'm gonna say the lyrics minus 1 word. I'll let you fill it in with your imagination. If you knew Suzie like I knew Suzie, then you would too. If you knew Suzie like I knew Suzie, then you would too. Technically, I left off 2 words. Technically, it's supposed to be her too. Then you would blank her too. Then you would say hello to her too. It's weird how it doesn't line up. Okay, I'm going to be not family friendly for a moment. So the actual lyrics, the word that I left out was the word like. If you knew Suzie like I knew Suzie, then you would like her too. Right? That's definitely the word. Yeah. Hello. Like her too, like her too, like her too. You knew Suzie like I knew Suzie, then you would like her too, like her too, like her too. FT, I'm assuming you're new here. Do I have any tips for drumming? I just spent like, 7-10 minutes, something like that, talking about one very specific thing, how to improve it. So if you want tips, go here. So the home tab. There's a playlist here, the drumming tips playlist. This has like over a dozen hours of drumming tips. Just scroll past the ones that are currently members first right here, starting with number 76 and working your way down. Well over a dozen hours of drumming tips in here. It'll keep you busy for a while. And then, thousands of free exercises on the home tab as well. You're welcome. But if you don't like the tips in one of the exercises, check out another one. Do I use traditional often? No, I used to march it though. Back when I was center snare. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it. Yeah, there's thousands of free tips and exercises. Yeah, Jonas. So I used to march traditional back when I was marching on snare for several years. But now I only do match grip. Do I have drum kit? Yeah, it's right here. It's my wife's, actually. Whoa! Don't know what happened there. But yeah, my drum kit is over there, off camera, but my wife's is here. Cool. Insightful commentary, I know. Wow, Jared said cool. All right. Now, I jumped on late today because I was preparing for a different stream where I'd actually answer some questions and whatnot. But that's going to come out in a couple of days. Or rather, we'll stream that live in a couple of days. But all of these play-alongs can be found on my home tab of YouTube. For every single one of them, there are timestamps in the description that allow you to go as slow as 20 beats a minute, or as fast, on some of them, as fast as 240. This one only goes to 120. But there's a lot of stuff. How long have you been streaming? Today for 57 minutes and 39 seconds. But in general, I don't know, a couple years. But how long I've been drumming? Since 1998. And then teaching since 2003. All these play-alongs you can find on the Home tab on my YouTube. There's over 1,000 of them. To find them organized, click on the header for this, and this shows you all of the playlists organized here. So if you scroll down and you're like, I want to work on triplet diddle variations. When you click on this, there are a bunch of triplet diddle variations. All of the members' first videos are scheduled to release for free. There's a new play-along releasing daily. I've got over 400 of them currently scheduled, so there's a lot of content. But again, I don't want anything behind a paywall. It's just for people who want it, and I'm able to gift 10 free memberships at the start of every month. So stay tuned for the first, and we'll gift it to more people. If you want drumming tips, you can find them here in this particular playlist. For these, if you click on it, like how to fix traditional grip slicing, when you click on these, there are timestamps in the description that shows you different topics that I talk about. So maybe you're not interested in this particular question, but there are some other questions that people have asked that I put in the timestamps so you can see specifically what it is that I talked about on there, etc.
You have
that's loud. There's 2 Jareds. That's one too many Jareds. Anyways, do I have videos on like drum kit? Yes. So if you go to the link, it's at the top of each one of the descriptions of the videos. We've got everything organized here. So we've got all the chop exercises. We've got over 900 grid variations. And if you scroll down to here where it says limb independence, this is some content specifically for drum kit. This video right here shows how I am working on limb independence and shows like a sequence that you can go through to work on any limb independence exercise or pattern and be able to improve that. So if you want to improve that, check out that particular video and then use these exercises and then these drumming charts, whether it's straight or swung, to be able to practice your limb independence. We've also got just under 400 marching bass exercises, just under 300 technique exercises, and then here's all the drumming tips, here's all the prior live streams, here are the scripted lessons, etc., etc., etc. Do I have tips on writing music and cadences for high school? Yeah, under the drumming tips section, I've got some tips that specifically talk about that in some of those videos. But in general, just like start now. Phone alarm is going off. And try, one of the ways that I worked on it was to take a song that I really enjoyed that had like a good beat and try and create a cadence out of that. So that is one way that you can practice that. So, for example, there's a piece, or not a piece, there's a song by Outkast called Last Call, and I turned that into a cadence. So that one was a lot of fun to do. And then there's another song called The Rooster by Outkast, and I turned that into like a lot jam / cadence kind of thing. There's like a Skrillex song that I turned into a cadence. Like, there's a lot of pieces that like sound cool. Like, one of the ones that I want to write is who is it? Logic and Eminem. I think it's called Homicide, and like that one has a really sweet beat to it. I'm like, that would be a fun cadence. So like, start with that. Usually like rap songs in particular are good for it because they usually have good beats. Usually, but if you start with that and you try and translate that onto the voicing of the tenors, the bass drum, and the snare drum, that's a great way to get used to writing cadences. As far as like writing music, what I'd highly recommend doing is starting with the wind and brass scores and then writing complementary parts. Be like, okay, what could I do that matches that phrasing? So if the winds are going up and then down, how could I make the basses do that as well? Or maybe instead of making the basses do that, maybe I should make the tenors do something like that. And then go, okay, what would be a fun phrasing to play that would move up and down the drums that kind of like matches with that, etc., and slowly start doing that. Now, I will say that when I started writing, I was terrible at writing. And over the years of actually practicing it, improving, I got better and better, and it eventually got better over time. So like all these exercises that I have, the reason why there are over 1,000 free exercises in here is because I've been teaching since 2003. So I have a lot of experience creating exercises for students who had issues. Like I've been teaching privately and publicly. So like one-on-one lessons as well as like in classes, sometimes up to hundreds of people in those classes, like marching band and whatnot. But I got better over time. Same thing with writing. So that's a very quick way of getting into it. But I have some more tips inside of these drumming tips videos. So just scroll down past the members' first ones. Can I do a stick trick? Yes, I can do many of them. I did one at the very beginning. It was called Gravity Check. I dropped it on the ground. Stick tricks aren't really something that I work on, but like, yeah, you can like twirl your sticks and do all kinds of stuff. You can throw it and then you can catch it on the backside. You can, woo! But no, I don't want to do that. Where am I from? Argentina. That's cool. I have not been to Argentina. I'm from Arizona in the United States, where it is hot. Thank you for the likes on TalkTick. Have I heard of the garden? No. The drummer goes hard. You know, one of my favorite drummers to listen to is lately is 2 from Sleep Token. If you haven't heard them, sweet, very tasty. You got it, Ron? Nathan, I appreciate you stopping in. And good question earlier about working on the second note of the diddle. Recently went to a DCA camp. You find it tensing your wrist. Interesting. Have I found certain techniques not work for people anatomically? Yes. So, for context, I have a really weird teaching experience. Like, if you go to /CV on my website, you can see more of the details of it. But I've taught every grade kindergarten through a doctoral student in both music education and computer science education context. So when people ask me questions about teaching, like, I'm drawing from those experiences. But like, having worked with students, one is like there's anatomy. So if we like think about, actually I'll go with this view, like traditional grip. So somebody was asking about that earlier. So back when I marched traditional grip, there were some instructors who wanted everyone to look the exact same way. But this technique for me might feel good, but for another person, they're going to look like this because they have smaller fingers. Or for another person, they're going to look like this because they have larger fingers. And I'm over exaggerating here. But like, I marched with a guy whose fingers like were literally like this compared to mine. Like, they just kept going like another digit basically. And so when he was marching on snare, his fingers looked like this in terms of the amount of spacing that was going on here. And the instructors would try and get him to like match like my technique. And that's just not going to happen because anatomically, like, you have different hand sizes, you have different finger lengths, you have all sorts of different mechanical issues. But to go with the question that you're asking, I find that some techniques are better at some things and worse at other things. So there's trade-offs with any kind of technique. So like, if we go with match grip, there's basically 3 main schools of thought when it comes to it. So there's like French grip where your thumb is up. There's flat, which is German grip, where your thumb is to the side. And then there's American, which is like in between, where there's like a slope to it. But then there's also different ways that you can play mechanically within that. So you can play with a all finger technique. You can play with a rotary technique. So like, you can do a rotary French grip where you literally just rotate your forearms like this. You can also play with an all wrist approach, like with French grip. And you can apply that with American, with German as well, like those different ones. And then you can add in molar into that. So there's all these different techniques that you can combine in different ways, and in almost like a Venn diagram. Oh, thank you for that donation on YouTube. But you can, like a Venn diagram on here, you can be like, okay, I'm going to use more of wrist technique and less of finger, and so it's going to be smaller, but it's going to overlap still. And what you need to find as a player and as an educator is what works best in what context for specific hands. So when I was teaching one-on-one with people, not only am I trying to like get an optimal sound quality, but I need to try and think of, well, how does this optimal sound quality relate to the anatomy of the students that I'm working with? So some students, yes, they're going to need to practice something to be able to get a technique down, but sometimes it's just not going to work. Again, going back to hand size, there's different hand sizes that will work or will not work for different scenarios. But if you're playing on like a drum kit versus playing on a snare drum versus playing on a marimba, that's also going to change the different way that you're going to approach the stick. So like what I've talked about previously a lot is like molar technique. So a full molar technique, when you're doing this, you're initiating the wrist moving up and down primarily before you move the bead of the stick, compared to like a normal stroke where you're going bead goes up and then the wrist moves afterwards. But with molar, you're going to use the wrist initiating the motion, and then you're going to kind of like whip the bead into it, etc. Okay, but that is going to sound not so great if you're playing like, let's play 1E and 2E and something like this with an accent. If you do this with molar on drum kit, you could literally go to this kind of exaggeration and start playing like this, but this slicing technique is going to make it sound worse. So you might do that and it sounds fine when you're the only person playing on drum kit. But if you're playing this on snare drum and you've got 7 other people who are also doing the same thing, that's going to sound terrible. And you're not going to get the same sound quality with this kind of a stroke compared to if you're playing like with this kind of a stroke. So the context is going to matter. So not only is it anatomy, it's also context for where you're playing and who you are or are not playing with for the different techniques. So when people will like post on social media or like on Reddit or whatever, like answering a question with a very definitive like, here is the thing that you need to work on, and this is the one way that you're supposed to play, that doesn't take into account all those different scenarios and whatnot. So what I recommend doing is actually studying with multiple people who teach different techniques and find out what works well in different contexts for different anatomy, which is a very long-winded answer that hopefully answers your question, Bryce. Good question. Can I check out the Garden Ampum truck instrument? I don't know what that is. Let me search. Oh, that looks like fun. I will do that off stream and check it out because I don't share other people's content on here because of copyright strikes and whatnot. There are some people who will do like drum covers and things like that, but those are technically illegal. You need like mechanical licensing and all sorts of things. Fair use doesn't actually cover that. Let's see. I thought that in French grip, the wrist did not allow the stick to go straight down to the head. So with French technique, there's this, there's rotation as well. So if you use rotation, do it here so you can kind of see this. If you're in the vertical feed, this is now the horizontal feed. This is now the primary camera. So there's straight up and down. There's wrist straight up and down. You can go like this. Then the rotation, it gets a little bit of a slicing stroke, but that doesn't really matter as much if you're playing timpani, which is primarily where you might use like a rotary French. Using mallets is playing like that. But there's many different ways to play in many contexts. It depends on your mallets as well, like all that sort of stuff, and what you're trying to use. But yeah, so there's not like one way to do French. There's not one way to do German. There's not one way to do American. There's many different ways, including with like traditional grip. So I'm making a scripted video on YouTube that's talking about like traditional grip and like the continuum with how much forearm and wrist versus how much finger you're going to use. And if you watch other people talking about this, there are some people who specifically talk about like, I use my thumb entirely and like I don't even move my wrist at all. And like as somebody who marched snare, like that was no. You're gonna get really inconsistent and weak sound quality if you do that. But on drum kit, you can get away with that. And so people will often talk about it in this context and do it there, and it sounds that way. So again, many ways to play, many things to learn. Which is why when like in these drumming tips videos, if we go down to here, this playlist, like I describe things in many ways and try and give like the nuances and the gray areas of like how to improve and how to get different sounds. But I'm never gonna like I at least try and come across as saying, here's the one way that you can play. Well, it depends. It's kind of like people who are like, here's the one way that you're supposed to teach. Well, having taught every grade kindergarten through doctoral student, I teach them all differently. Why? Because they were different ages, they were different ability levels, they were different students, they were different people, like they were in different towns, etc. So there's so many nuances there. But we often see people on social media like here's a definitive way because like marketers in particular are trying to get you to sound more confident about it, so that way you can sell a product or sell an idea. And I personally am not a fan of that because there's just like too many nuances to consider, which for me is one of the reasons why I like teaching and like drumming, because there are all those nuances to explore. But anyway, I've rambled too much. I do appreciate everybody stopping in. And again, you can find all of the play alongs, thousands, under the drumming content on my YouTube. Just click, and then all of these have timestamps in the description, so you can play as slow or as fast as you want to jump to whatever BPM you would like to go to. Now, I'm going to tear this down, and I'm going to get ready for some Fortnite. Now, last time we did this, we got 4 wins out of 7 games, so not bad. We'll see if we can get a similar win rate. But tomorrow, we'll be back on drum kit. I'll be struggling through some limb independence permutations and patterns that I'm not good at yet, so stay tuned for that. But I appreciate all the questions. I hope y'all have a good rest of your day, and goodbye.